MAGAnomics is more extreme than anything America's ever seen before. Republicans have given us a failed plan, a trickle-down economics that didn't work.
MAGAnomics, you mean low regulation and low taxes? That was President Biden going after so-called MAGAnomics during a campaign event in Maryland yesterday. A new column in the Washington Post writes this: adults are ordering from kids' menus to save money. Should they be? Sean, when was the last time you ate off of a kids' menu?
If I happen to go to a really, really fancy place and I don't like what's on there, I might go for the chicken nuggets or the macaroni and cheese.
Yeah, that's
it's kind of funny. The restaurant industry is under pressure, just like retailers. I was reading the other day about people just, eating and then leaving, or what you used to call dine and dash. And I'm wondering if this will lead to sort of this reverse carding issue where, when you were younger and you wanted to get into a bar but you weren't of age, you would get a fake ID. I wonder if some older people are going to get fake IDs that say they're younger if they happen to put pressure on ordering from the kids menu, because the restaurants just don't like it.
Yeah, I mean, it's cheaper. That's the bottom line. It's cheaper. But Joe Borelli, I mean, this whole idea that Joe Biden is trying to sell, that President Trump's policies were extreme. I mean, let's talk about those policies. One of the key economic policies of President Trump was low regulation. I remember that whole, big show he put on when he came out and he had stacks and stacks of papers and regulations, and then he had red tape and he cut the red tape and he said, cutting red tape is a beautiful thing. I mean, that was the underlying policy of his administration, that and a new tax plan which lowered taxes for much of America. So how is that extreme?
No, and the irony is that Donald Trump is actually not spending a lot of time actually talking about the economic progress that America saw under his administration. People around their kitchen table talk about that. They recognize that 4 years ago or so, things were better for their family, and they weren't eating off the kids' menu, although I probably ate off the kids' menu in 2017 and 2023. But for the majority of Americans, I mean, things were better in 2018 and 2019 than they are today. And when Biden talks about MAGAnomics, to a lot of people out there in America, that's actually free advertising for Donald Trump. It just makes us remind us of the good old days.
Yeah, I mean, it cracks me up when you hear the Democrats try to make America great a bad word, or a bad phrase. I mean, what's wrong with making America great?
Absolutely nothing. And, the two other big parts of the Trump agenda were to be tough on China, which we've spent a lot of time talking about this morning,
Good point.
Which you've been all over, Maria, and making U.S. energy a global superpower and dominant, and turning us from importers to exporters. And so the other thing that's interesting about the energy policy, the other tangent is that, do you think that Vladimir Putin would be as strong as he is if oil was still $40 a barrel or $50 a barrel? That policy here that drove up oil prices gave the funding that the Russians needed to do what they needed in Ukraine. And so having a strong president like what President Trump was, with an economic agenda that is geared towards driving the economy, I just don't think that's extreme.
Yeah, and I think people are really figuring this out. A new Fox News poll reveals that in a Biden-Trump matchup, support for Biden is dropping among some key voting blocs. Take a look at this. This compares to fall 2020. It includes suburban women, women in general, black voters, voters under age 45, and Hispanic voters. Their support has now moved over to Donald Trump, Joe. So what you just said is resonating with all of these key voting blocs that both of these guys need to win in 2024. Yeah,
and the scariest number there should be suburban voters, because that is the group of people, especially suburban women, who made the biggest shift in themselves from the Democratic Party to the Republican Party under Trump. And we started by talking about chicken fingers, but look at more broadly retail. I mean, people are looking for discounts. We have retailers closing all over the country, and what's going up in their place? What stores are leasing those same spaces? It's the Dollar Generals, it's the Dollar Trees, and those other type of discount stores where Americans are just flocking as a direct result of them not being able to afford even the Kohl's and the Macy's.
That's exactly right. And you know what else? Layer on top of that, the fact that these retailers are having to deal with what they call shrink, okay? Shrink. And that is a shrinkage in inventory because everybody's stealing everything. So that also goes back to bad policies because there are no consequences for crime. You go to your CVS or Walgreens and your toothpaste is locked up because you know that there's all this shrinkage going on. Retailers are eating that.
Yes, it's going to be a pass-on cost to the consumer at the end of the day. They're not going to eat it forever. And so that is another sort of tangential inflationary story. The strike is inflationary, oil prices are inflationary, and shrinkage in the retail space is ultimately going to be inflationary.
Trump could run on unlocked deodorant and win the election tomorrow, basically.
Unbelievable. How did we get here?